So let's talk about comedy for a second.
Okay.
So I think of you as like philosopher poet rather than comedian. Is that a compliment?
That's how I think of myself.
Okay. But yet you are...
I don't think of myself like that. Actually, wait, hold on. I think I'm a philosopher fucking
well, I think
poet.
I think of you that way, but you're a comedian.
Thank
so
you.
How did you get into comedy?
Okay. You want the real story?
I don't want to hear about slavery again.
Okay. So here's what happened. It's really like my life has been chaos, and I got into comedy through chaos. I left liberal arts school. I had inherited $10,000 from my grandmother, and I was like, this is gonna last at least 2 years in LA. Then I'm serious. I was like, I could stretch this for a long time.
So gasoline for 3 months.
Oh my God, so dumb and just deeply stupid. And so I went. I'm like, I'm gonna move to Venice, and
a cheap place like Venice, inexpensive.
And you know why I wanted to move there?
Why?
Because I'd seen the Doors movie when I was like in high school or something, and I'm like, Jim Morrison lived there. It must be like just
Beyond.
Truly like the hippie paradise. So I get there, and I'm walking down a sidewalk in some random place, and this Portuguese dude.
How do you know it's Portuguese?
Because I ended up like living next to his son.
Okay.
And he was like, we started talking. I'm like, yeah, I'm just looking for a place. He's like, I'm renting a place for $600 a month. Okay. And it was right by the beach. I'm like, this is fucking amazing.
Insane.
So I ended up, it was the day to move in, and I get there, and his kid is still living in the place I was going to, sleeping on a sleeping bag on the floor. Yeah. And his kid is like, do you mind if I sleep on the floor for a couple more days? Uh-oh. And I'm like, not at all. Because I just got out of liberal arts going, I don't care. Let's get some Carlo Rossi. Fucking get hammered. It's awesome. I got a friend. And so I'm hanging out with this guy.
Portuguese son, dude.
Yeah. And he ends up moving into the house right next to mine. And this guy was an authentic crackhead. Like, not like people are like,
deal.
You're a crackhead.
A real deal crackhead.
He was into crack cocaine at the time.
Yeah.
And I can remember like...
Just at the time?
What's that?
Just at the time?
I've lost touch.
Shocking.
But I remember he would stack beer cans in front of the gate, and I'd come home and like knock the beer cans over, and he'd leap out like, right. I need the rent early this month. I'm like, why? He's like, for power. I'm like, all right, fine. But I remember he took me on this, like, he was like a really sweet guy, believe it or not, even though his friend, I remember I've never smoked crack, and I will never smoke crack. There's a few drugs I'll never touch. I'm never going to touch crack, never going to touch heroin. But I was watching his friends. Have you ever smoked crack?
You asking me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, like if there's anything in nature telling you not to consume it, it's fucking crack.
Yeah.
It's like if you took a diaper filled with shit, not from a baby, but from like a middle-aged person's shit, and put it in a microwave. That's what crack smells like.
And then put like methane on it. Put like a hydrocarbon on it.
Plastic. Some kind of plastic.
Yes, plastic.
You just got to mix it. It's like that wonderful combination of burning plastic and like festering diarrhea. Like not just normal shit. I'm talking like you're like, oh shit, this is bad. I have to go to the doctor. Like this is bad. Yeah. So it's like diarrhea. Literally just telling you this. Don't do this. This is terrible.
I think I'll inhale that.
Yeah. You're like yeah. And I was watching his friend. I've never seen people smoke crack before. It like his friend takes a hit. His lips got all blue, and he looks at me and goes, "If I have a heart attack, call 911." Yeah. So this was like one of the.
This you thought I got to go to comedy.
What?
This is when you thought I got to go to comedy?
Comedy part's coming.
Okay.
This is where I'm telling you, man.
Blue lips, I'm going to die.
In Buddhism, this is one of the beautiful things in Buddhism. They say no mud, no lotus. And the combination is like a flower growing out of a garbage dump. And I'll get to the comedy part. This guy, his friend, the blue lips dude, at one point he's like, will you help me cop a rock? And I am insecure to this day. And I fucking, because of PTSD, Dad, if you're an older dude who's clearly a little sick or
You're going to help him.
I want to help.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Rescue fantasy for older dudes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That had to be my. So
couldn't have been the younger women.
anything like literally like, oh, you remind me of my dad. Let me tell you about Ram Dass. Oh. So
Did your dad like Ram Dass?
what? No.
Oh no, that's
Not until the end. But in the end, he started listening more to it because he was dying and people were dying.
Didn't you go with Pete to see Ram Dass?
Yeah.
Did you do it?
Do what?
Go see Ram Dass with Pete Holmes.
Well, I do these retreats with Ram Dass every year. I'm going in May.
Oh, it's in May. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, this guy, he was like, you ever cop a rock? And I wanted to impress him. So I'm like, no. Instead of being like, what's copping a rock? I was like, no. He's like, well, you want to go cop a rock with me? I'm like, sure. I knew what this was. So we drive down the street and he does a crack deal in front of me. These dudes come running out of the house, screaming at him for some reason, like, get the fuck out of here. They throw crack in the car. He gives them money. We drive away. I'm like realizing like if we get pulled over, I'm going to have to tell the cops, officer, I didn't know what copping a rock meant.
Right. He's like, yeah.
right. You see my dad had PTSD.
They're ready for that explanation.
So anyway, this guy took me on this really nostalgic tour of West Hollywood.
While he was smoking crack?
He was not on crack at the time. I think I'm not sure what drug he was on. Right. But
Valium.
Probably acid. Probably acid, because we were like, it's a long story, but like he drove by the House of Blues and was like, that's the House of Blues. And what was really cool about it was like there was an authentic, nostalgic Southern California respect for these establishments. It's really sweet. Oh, that's where the big dogs go, the House of Blues. And then we passed the Comedy Store. He's like, yeah, that's the Comedy Store. Pauly Shore's mom owns that place. And I don't know. I looked at the Comedy Store, this big black building, and I'm like, fuck, man. Whoa, that place looks cool. And then I ran out of money, spent all my money on drugs and synthesizers and Carlo Rossi. Basically ran out of money and was like walking by the Comedy Store, and I touched the building. I remember touching the building and getting this real weird sense of like, I'll try to get a job in there. And so I went in there and started like giving the manager like these prank call CDs I had made in college, thinking that's going to get me a job there. I just started harassing him. I never do that either. I've never do that. Every week I would bug him, Robert Davies. And finally he's like, all right. It was like he gave up. He got fatigued saying no to me. He's like, you can have a job on the phones twice a week. And so I started working on the phones.
Doing what?
Answering the phone.
Reservations?
Reservations.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then if you worked on the phones, you got 3 minutes of stage time a week. And
did you know that?
Yeah, but I didn't give a fuck. I didn't want to be a comic.
Oh, you just wanted to work there.
I just thought it'd be fun to work at a comedy club.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I'm not saying that like secretly. I was really like, I don't know. But Mitzi, I remember the first time, that was the terror of the phone operators is Mitzi would call, and if she just didn't like your voice or if you accidentally dropped anything, you would get fired.
If you want to get a fictionalized version of that whole era of Mitzi establishing the Laugh Factory, the Comedy Store. I'm Dying Up Here was a series about that.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. That's that. Yeah. It was, and that you can't you cannot capture. It's impossible to capture the energy of that place. And it would have been, there's no way you can capture the energy of her unless, if you want to know what she's like, go to India. Go to Varanasi, India, and sit next to a fucking cremation god. And I'm not saying it because she's like, it's a body burning. I'm saying it because some people have extra energy.
And she's got it.
Oh, she had it.
And so, did you watch great comics and that inspired you? Or did you take your 3 minutes and do something with it? What happened?
What happened is comedians were just like, why aren't you using your 3 minutes? We were working at this awful job, maybe not making as much money, so we could have that 3 minutes. So I started doing the 3 minutes.
What was your first thing?
My first joke?
I mean, how did you get up there and what did you do the first 3 minutes?
God.
Yeah.
So because like I'd come out of like a liberal arts school, and because I was really into psychedelics, and because I had like been in the company of like some really interesting people who were like just not what you call comedians, but really interesting people. I tried to be a real smart up there. I just tried to be like the smartest, edgiest thing. And I did like some kind of like non sequitur series of like you wouldn't even call it like a poetry slam.
Yeah.
Poetry. It was like just garbage, like as garbage could be. And then I got off stage and Eleanor Kerrigan, who's a friend of mine now, a very funny comedian, waitress at the time, and terrifying at the time. Everyone was terrified of her. So another powerful figure. She stops me and goes, I don't know what that was, but it wasn't comedy.
When did you figure out how to do comedy?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. I to this day don't think I've figured out how to do comedy, but
when did you make people laugh?
It happened in the open mic. It happened. It just starts happening naturally. I think I told a story. I think the first time I had a really good set, I told a story about like going into this BDSM club, making out with these two girls. I was like, I just said what happened, and I was honest about it.
See, that's the poetry part. I'm right.
Yeah, well, I think there is a certain poetry to stand-up comedy.
Yes,
you know?
I think Pryor was a poet.
Yeah.
His stuff. I've said this and I'll say it again. His stuff is as relevant this minute as it was the moment he uttered it, and it comes as poetry when you listen to the stories, particularly. Yeah,
it's because he was zero latency. You know, it's like the thing that many of us have is latency, which is there is an idea of who we think we are. And then there's who we are. And that the space between who we are and who we think we are creates stammers. Because you're always...
Stammers.
Yeah, because you're trying to correct to become this thing you want people to think you are or you wish you were instead of as you are right now.
So he's always as he was.
Yeah, zero latency.
Yeah.
He just was... They say no filters.
Right. No, I see it as sort of almost like a jazz musician that just things flow out of them.
Yes.
Like that. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And also a hard worker, which is another thing people just seem to leave out of the equation, is he worked his fucking ass off. It wasn't just that he was a jazz musician. And I'll tell you, jazz musicians are deceptive. Because if you see a great jazz musician, you will think, I could do that. He's just tinkering on the keys.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just not like that.
No.
He was also a Freemason.
He was?
Yeah, isn't that weird?
You gonna develop a conspiracy theory around that?
No conspiracy theory. You can look it up. Richard Pryor was a Mason.
You're not gonna develop one? Develop a Illuminati theory around it?
About the Masons?
Yeah. And Richard Pryor.
There's no the conspiracy theory is that he probably learned some like good skills or something that helped him with whatever they taught him.
Well, that's interesting.